Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be checking out Genesis 17.
Yeah.
It's a chapter full of drama and some big promises,
Yeah.
and even a little bit of laughter, which is always a good time.
Yeah, this is one of those chapters that grabs you right from the start, Put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's 99 years old and is suddenly given this life-changing message.
Yeah, it's like, talk about a plot twist, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about Abram,
Right.
who God promises will be the father not just of one nation,
Right.
but many nations.
Many nations, yeah. That's a big promise. And to kind of signify this new chapter, God gives Abram a new name,
Right.
Abraham, meaning father of a multitude.
Yeah.
And his wife, Sarai, also gets a name change, becoming Sarah.
It's like they're getting a whole new identity,
Totally.
I don't know, like a superhero origin story or something.
It's true. It's totally like a fresh start. Yeah. And so to solidify this commitment, God establishes a covenant with Abraham.
Right. Okay.
And the sign of that covenant is circumcision.
Okay, so a covenant, for anybody who's maybe not super familiar with that term,
Yeah.
it's basically it's a really serious promise.
It's a promise. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A binding agreement.
Yeah.
And in this case, it signifies a deep, lasting relationship between God and Abraham and his descendants.
Okay, so they're going to have all these descendants, but then it gets even crazier because then Sarah, who's way past childbearing age,
Yeah. Wait.
is also promised that she's going to have a son.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Come on.
A son named Isaac, who will inherit the covenant.
Right.
So this is a moment that really tests Abraham's faith because, let's be honest, this is impossible.
Yeah.
It seems totally impossible.
I think if, somebody told me that, I'd be like, yeah.
Abraham actually laughs when he hears this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty normal reaction.
It is a normal reaction.
Yeah.
But that's where, the idea of faith comes in, right? You've got to believe it, even if...
Yeah, believing in something even when it seems, logically impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
Outlandish.
Absolutely. And, that's what Genesis 17 is all about. It's about this trusting in a power that's greater than ourselves, even when things seem totally impossible.
Okay. Now, there's another little interesting thing here because Abraham already has a son, Ishmael, from a previous relationship.
That's right.
So, I'd be a little worried, hey, what about my first son?
Right. You can imagine Abraham's concern for Ishmael's future now that it seems that Isaac will be the heir to the covenant.
Right. So does God just forget about Ishmael?
Well, and that's what's so amazing about this.
Yeah.
God doesn't forget about Ishmael. God acknowledges Abraham's concern and promises to bless Ishmael as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that he too will be the father of a great nation. It's a really beautiful example of inclusivity and grace. It's showing that God's blessings are not limited to just one chosen lineage. It's open to, it's a bigger vision.
So we've got this story. It's got covenants and transformation and faith and obedience.
Right.
And even inclusivity.
It's all there.
But what does that actually mean for us, in the 21st century?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? What does this ancient wisdom have to do with our modern lives? And that is exactly what we're going to get into next. Because believe it or not, these old ideas, they still have a lot to say about how we live our lives today.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that something written thousands of years ago could still apply to us today.
Yeah.
But I'm ready to have my mind blown, so
yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, I think, a good place to start is with the whole idea of covenants.
Right.
In Genesis 17, it's this formal agreement between God and Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, we make these kinds of commitments all the time in our own lives.
You mean promises?
Exactly. Every time you say, I do, or sign a contract, or even tell a friend, I've got your back, you're basically entering into a covenant. It's all about trust. It's about showing that you're committed.
Yeah, and just like in the story, keeping those promises.
Yeah.
That's how you build strong relationships.
It's how you build trust.
That last.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about when it comes to, Abraham and Sarah having to, they had to embrace this whole new identity?
Yeah.
And,
totally.
I feel like we all kind of go through that sometimes.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I think that's one of the most powerful messages of Genesis 17 is this idea of transformation.
Right.
We often resist change so much, We cling to what we know even when it's not really serving us anymore.
Right.
But, this chapter is all about letting go of who we were
to
become who we're supposed to be.
Yeah, but how do you actually apply that to your life?
Well, think about it this way. Have you ever had a big life change?
Mm-hmm.
A new job, becoming a parent, moving to a new city. All of these are opportunities for transformation. They're chances to redefine who we are and what we want to achieve. It's like we're constantly being given these new names, new chapters in our story.
Yeah, it can be scary, though.
Oh, it is. It's totally scary. But so how do we face those challenges with that kind of, faith that Abraham had?
Like, where do you even begin?
Well, that's where the idea of faith in action comes in.
Okay.
It's not enough to just say we believe in something. We have to actually live it out. Remember circumcision. That was like a physical sign
Right.
of Abraham's commitment to the covenant.
So, like, don't just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk.
You gotta walk the walk, exactly.
Yeah.
It's about aligning our actions with our values. So imagine, like, you want to be a more compassionate person, right? So faith in action would look like volunteering your time or donating to a cause you believe in.
Right.
Or even just choosing kindness in your everyday interactions.
Yeah.
It's about showing the world what you truly believe in.
Right. It's putting it into action.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's this whole thing of, believing in what seems impossible.
Right.
Like having faith in the unseen.
Yeah.
Which Abraham definitely had to do.
Totally. I mean, we all face those situations in our lives, right? We come up against something that seems impossible. It could be like a personal struggle or setback at work.
Yeah, for sure.
Or even like a global crisis.
Right.
But, Genesis 17 reminds us that sometimes, like, our greatest triumphs come from believing in something beyond what we can see, beyond what we understand.
That's like that saying, take the leap and the net will appear.
It is, exactly.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying. And sometimes that leap of faith is just choosing hope when everything is telling you to give up,
Right.
It's trusting that there's a bigger picture, even if we can't always see it.
Right. Okay. And then we can't forget about, God promised to bless Ishmael.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he wasn't, like, the main heir.
Right. That part of the story is so important because it highlights the power of inclusivity and grace. It reminds us that, there's room for everyone.
That's a good message.
It's a beautiful message, especially in the world today where it feels like everything is dividing us,
Yeah, for sure.
So Genesis 17 is reminding us that we don't have to limit our compassion, our understanding.
Right.
We can choose to see the inherent worth in every single person.
So how do we actually, like, as individuals, start to put these ideas into practice?
Yeah.
How do we take these principles and make them real in our world?
Yeah, it's like we've uncovered all this, like, deep wisdom just from this one chapter.
They're amazing, right?
Pretty wild.
Yeah. And I think it's because these stories, they tap into something, like, really universal. Like that desire for connection and the struggle with change, the search for meaning. We all go through that. Yeah, we do. So if we were going to, like, sum it all up, what's the big takeaway from Genesis 17? What should we, like, carry with us as we go about our lives?
I think it's a call to action. It's like we're being challenged to take these principles, keeping our promises, being open to transformation, acting on what we say we believe in, having that faith in something bigger than ourselves, and practicing inclusivity. And then actually weaving that into our lives.
Yeah, it's like we're being given this blueprint.
It is. It's like a blueprint.
For, like, a good life.
For a more meaningful life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, like, this big dramatic thing. It starts with small steps, right?
Right.
So it could be as simple as, like, recommitting to a promise you made to yourself. Or having a real conversation with somebody you've been avoiding. Or just, like, choosing to look for the good in others even when it's hard. It's about making those little choices.
Right, so make the choice to, like, link by these values.
Yes. Exactly. And those little choices over time become habits. And those habits shape us. They change who we are.
It's powerful stuff.
It is powerful.
I'm definitely walking away from this with a lot to think about.
Genesis 17 reminds us that even these ancient texts can still be so relevant.
For sure. And to everyone listening, I hope this has given you some new things to think about, maybe even inspired you to look at your own life, like the promises you're making, the changes you're facing, and how you're living out your faith.
Keep asking those questions,
Yeah.
Keep searching and see what you discover.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.